Investors, with an unprecedented combined investment of over $1 billion, descended onto Durban, South Africa to discuss agribusiness investment opportunities in Africa. Africa Investor, an international investment research and communications group, together with KwaZulu-Natal Department of Agriculture, Environmental Affairs and Rural Development, hosted the event.
We've seen that there is a knowledge deficit within the policy-making arena on how to engage the investment community. We tend to use these big, broad themes like, oh, we're engaging the private sector. Well, the investment community are very different from the general private sector. So we believe that this is starting a very relevant and necessary debate between the investment community and the policy-making community on what sort of conditions need to be put in place to attract, fund investment into agriculture in Africa.
Countries like China have already made major investments in Africa. China has acquired vast amounts of arable land in countries like Zimbabwe and Algeria. But should we open our doors to anyone willing to invest in our continent?
I think any investment, as long as it's productive and focused, is important. I think understanding how to attract and grow it and develop it is really the key. So we've heard this debate, and I think we were asked several times about Chinese investment in Africa. What do we think about that? Well, I think that we need to negotiate with anyone, and we need to be equipped to be able to get a good deal. It's not a case of where the investment originates. It's all capital, it's all resources. We just need to have a very clear and strategic plan about how to absorb that, grow it, and let it sort of filter across our overall development strategies as a continent.
Ghana's Deputy Minister of Agriculture attended the summit and shared with the delegates how their country is making land more accessible to investors.
In Ghana, we have as much as 78% of the land being owned customarily. And what government does to promote investment is that we negotiate with the landowners on behalf of the investors so that they can easily access land. Apart from that, the Minister of Food and Agriculture, on behalf of the government, has identified land banks, a lot of land banks, on the different locations within the country. Depending upon where the investor wants to locate, then we negotiate on the investor's behalf. And land acquisition in Ghana is not difficult at all because of the intervention put in place by the government.
During the event, there were several panel discussions. These included topics from infrastructure corridors to export and trade finance. The Investors Clinic drew a large audience. They discussed some of the challenges Africa faces in regards to investing in agriculture on the continent.
Small-scale producers in rural areas, we don't have any commercial farmers whatsoever.
The session chair, UNK, and Executive Director of Agriterra Limited, gave us his opinions on what he thought was a major challenge in this regard.
I found throughout Africa that corruption at low-level government, certainly not at ministerial and government levels, high government levels, but at low-level district areas, it's a huge problem to get things done because everybody thinks that when an investor comes in, they're entitled to a slice of the pie. And also government bureaucracy. Government has to bypass these archaic laws that they have in place if they want the investor to be actively involved.
South Africa's government is due to release the Green Paper on land reform and rural development. A 3-tier system will be proposed. The first tier, state land under leasehold, second tier, private land under freehold with limited extent, and the third tier, foreign ownership with precarious tenure linked to productivity and partnership models with South African citizens. Many believe that this paper could scare off potential investors.
I think it's too early now to start being a bit uneasy because any paper that is produced is giving an opportunity people to comment on it. And I want to believe that once it's out and there are comments, any areas of concern will be addressed because it won't be of any use if we go on with the thing that is going to really create problems around our investors. So for me, it's too early to have any anxiety. Once it's out, there'll be opportunity for commenting and addressing that issue.
It's not only investors that might be affected by this paper. Many farmers are concerned about the Green Paper and what it means for them and their land. We recently spoke to Francois van der Berg, a farmer in Gauteng, South Africa, who told us what farmers in his community thought of the proposed Green Paper.
Okay, we haven't seen the green paper. It's been promised since April. So we can only make our own conclusions on what will be in the green paper. And that's based on comments made by the Minister, comments made at Polokwane and comments made at the Land Summit. Based on those, we are concerned about a possible cap on land ownership. We are concerned about nationalisation. We are concerned about ownership. There's talks about limited international ownership or foreign ownership of land and the number of farms a farmer may own. Now, you know, the backbone of our economy is title deeds and the ownership of property. And if those things are under threat, I think the whole economy is under threat, and I think those are the major concerns of our farmers.
The paper is part of South Africa's land reform program and is meant to hand over 30% of farmland to the country's black majority by 2014. A target Francois van der Berg says is unrealistic.